Should you really wait 3 days after a date to call a woman? Hi there, men's dating coach HarryWilmington here, founder of IntrovertDatingSuccess.com, and today I'm going to break down the myth, once and for all, about whether or not it's in the best interest of increasing her like for you to wait a certain number of days between dates to call her, as well as the psychology behind why it does or does not work effectively. If you're watching this on YouTube, hit that subscribe button and the little bell icon to be notified of new videos. Also, go to the website to watch my free video training, How to Get Attractive, Feminine, Emotionally Stable Women Dying to Respond to Your First Messages on Dating Apps Without Using Sleazy Pickup Lines. And now, let's check out that clip. I had my first date with this girl yesterday. He's 26 and she's 25. He says, it went decent. It wasn't awkward or anything like that. It was a date at Starbucks and I had a really good time, enjoyed her company, but she did most of the talking and I just wished it was a bit more of an even conversation, mainly on my part. For those early dates, that's actually not a problem. As an introvert, you should be wanting to analyze everything about her, and the easiest way to do that is to get her to talk. But also, you typically want to get her talking more about herself because when people talk about themselves to you, they see that you're taking a genuine interest in who they are, and that can actually build up attraction faster. Now, back in the day, I had the same problem where I would be scrambling my head trying to think of what do I need to say on dates in order to get them to like me? What questions should I ask? What kind of funny statements or stories should I be telling? And I would literally write down lists before dates. Like I'd take out a little pad of paper and write down the things I want to mention on the date. I'd look up on websites, what are things that girls are interested in talking about? And it was just, I was so in my head about I need to be the catalyst for this conversation, not realizing that if I just really take the focus off of me and put it on what do I really want to know about her? What is interesting in her life that she probably wants to talk about that I would just find fascinating, and then focus on those things to talk about and ask her, then it got me out of my head more and I was able to talk to women on a more natural level. And then also, I think sometimes we think that we have to talk the entire time. And the reality is that sometimes it's okay to pause the conversation and have there be nothing. And there might be some awkward silences, and they're only awkward because you're thinking, man, I should be talking at this moment in time. But what you'll come to realize is that there is actually a benefit to silence, because silence can sometimes create anxiety, and it can create anxiety in her. And then sometimes that'll make her think, ooh, there's some tension here. Could this be sexual tension? Could this be awkward tension? I don't know, but tension is not a bad thing. Guys typically take tension as a very, very bad thing. But women, their emotional landscape of what they're able to handle is amazing. And also the emotional landscape of what they need in order to feel things for you is also rather vast. So sometimes putting together an awkward silence, it might make her feel anxious, but that might be something she needs to feel in the moment in order to raise her attraction to you, okay? And it'll also make her think, wow, I need to be saying stuff to interest this guy because it's kind of silent now. Am I losing his interest? Maybe I can come up with something to ask him. So don't always put it on yourself. But continuing on, he says about the conversation part, he says, mainly on my part, there were just times I should have contributed more. But anyway, I wanted to know when I should text her again. She was really cool and I would definitely like to take her out again. But when should I text her again? Is that whole wait 3 days after the date a real thing? Or does anybody have any other suggestions? For context, the last thing we did was message each other when we arrived home safely last night after leaving Starbucks. And we said good night. Neither of us bringing up the date that much, which is fine. A lot of times after those first dates, you might just get a, hey, I had a great evening, or thanks again for the coffee, or whatever. And then ideally, they're going to text you that first. You really should not be reaching out to the woman first after that first date. You should say your goodbyes at the coffee shop and then drive off. And you do this in part because you're waiting to see if she has built any interest in you during that time. And the easiest way to tell that, honestly, is to wait for her to text you and say, hey, just want to let you know I had a good time. And what will typically happen for me is this. I'll go on a date for a first date. I'll show a woman a really nice time. I'll give her a hug at the car or say, it was nice meeting you or whatever, and then I'll leave. And by the way, I don't mention anything like, it was nice meeting you. We should do this again sometime soon. Gosh, I hope you want to do another date sometime. Let's set up a second date on this date right now. Those are not things you need to do, and I will go into that in another episode. But the point is, but I leave it where I say all my goodbyes and stuff at the actual date location, and then I leave. And what I typically find without fail, since starting to do this years ago, every time I do that, within the span of like, I'll say 1.5 to 3 hours, I'll be at home on the computer watching the video, and I'll see my phone light up with a text from the girl simply saying, hey, just wanted to let you know I had a nice time. Thanks again. Why is she doing that? Because the majority of guys she's going out with are sending her that goodnight text. And when that happens, the interest that she's getting from them is incoming, which is fine, but you doing that doesn't actually build up any interest in her. Like, you took her on a date and showed her a good time. At this point, you leaving her alone will actually do the work for you of building the interest. But when she doesn't hear from you, because she's used to hearing from other people and getting that validation, now she's thinking, this guy's not giving me the validation that I need after this date. So that must mean, I don't know what it means. Could he be interested still? Did he have a bad time on the date? Does he know that I appreciated the date in the first place? You know what? Let me reach out to him just to let him know. And when she does that and sends that text, she's showing you her interest. She's showing you that she wants you to still have her on your mind. Okay? And so this is why it's a good idea not to do that. But the point is, anyway, so that part's good. But then him saying the part about should he wait 3 days after the date. So this is a bit of a controversial topic. I don't know why it is, but it is. And when I was going through the Reddit stream and looking at the other answers that this guy got, I'd say like 95% of the answers were, you should text her back the next day. You don't need to play games. If she really likes you, she's going to blah, 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 blah. And people forget, women don't necessarily have their like for you all the way figured out after date one. Like, I've had women that I've dated for a long term, but they said after that first date, they weren't too sure. But then that second date we went on was absolutely great. So you could show them a great time. You could pay for everything. You could take them to some date they've never been on before. And at the end of the date, they could still be like, I'm still trying to figure him out. But here's the thing, okay? Part of her figuring you out is trying to determine where you're at in terms of your emotional state, in terms of if you are a needy person, if you're a desperate person. And the way that a lot of women monitor this is by looking to see how often and how soon the guy is going to text them afterward. So I can just go off of my experience. I know early on when I was going on dates and texting women immediately after the date, and then the next day, and then the day after that, and the day after that, their responses started to get a little bit shorter and it started to wane, okay? Versus where I got to a point where I just didn't care. Like, I would go on a date, have a good time, and then I had to train myself to forget that the date even happened with the intent of waiting a few days. I'd be like, okay, this date happened, it was great, but I can't be too hype about it because I don't know if I'll get a second date until I ask her out a second time, and I need to wait for that to happen. And what would happen is when I did that, by day like 3 or 4, women would start reaching out to me. Hey, just wanted to see what you're up to, how you been, what's going on. Boom. I know they're interested, okay? But here's the thing. It is a nice thing to respond right away to a woman that texts you. And it is a nice thing to text a woman the next day after a date. These are very nice, polite, gentlemanly things to do. They are not things that attract women. These are not actions that you need to actually do in order to get a woman feeling more intense feelings for you, okay? And this is where I go into the thing talking about, I've done a show before about the dating phase versus the relationship phase, but during the dating phase, basically, like, I'll rewind back. If they were in a relationship and she texted him, then at that point, they've probably been going out for 3 or 4 months. They got an established routine going on. So it's not going to be a thing where if you text her back or call back the next day, that it's going to hurt or hinder her attraction for you. You've already booed her up and you're good to go. But during the attraction phase, when she doesn't know you, the worst thing you can do is do things that look like you're lodging yourself into her life right away when she's not ready for it. And this is what doing things like texting the next day, calling the next day does, is it tells the woman, hey, you know what? We've only been on one date, but I've already chosen you as the person I want to go out with. So I'm going to start doing things as if we're already in a relationship. But if the woman is not yet at the phase where she wants to be in a relationship with you, then all you're going to do is harm to her like for you, okay? And so I wrote this guy back and I told him, like, you know, the psychology of this is mind-blowing, but basically you're going to have a better shot at increasing her like for you in a faster amount of time by actually A, doing less texting and calling, and B, making her wait a few days before you call her. Now, he asked about the 3-day rule, and I said, it is actually BS about the 3-day rule. I said, I personally wait anywhere between 4 to 7 days before I contact a woman for a second date. So what'll happen is I take a girl out on a Sunday, for example, show her a really, really great time, show her a better time than any other guy's going to show her. I'm attentive, I pay for stuff, I have a good conversation, I make her laugh, and then I leave it alone, and I know to call her either Thursday or to call her the next Sunday, because I don't call on weekends. I don't call on Fridays and Saturdays because it's, again, a lot of this is just psychological, but Fridays and Saturdays are typically seen as exclusive date nights, meaning if you're exclusive with somebody already, then those are the nights that you get because you're the most free on Friday and Saturday. You don't want to indicate to a woman that you just have all this free time to give her right away. And when you offer Friday and Saturday dates, that's what happens. But that's also true when you call on those days because those are days that you should be busy doing other stuff and giving her the impression that your life is so busy and so great that she can't yet get a weekend date. She has to work for your attention on Fridays and Saturdays. So if I don't call her on a Thursday or hit her up on a Thursday, then I'll wait till Sunday to hit her up for another weekday date. Also, I find if I do wait, then I might get hit up by the woman on a Friday or Saturday with a, hey, what's up? What are you doing? What you up to? Whatever, which lets me know, oh, she clearly has some high interest and she's also like very bored on a Friday and Saturday, which means she has nothing else going on, which is good news for me. But yeah, so psychologically, the reasons behind all this is very, very mind-blowing. So I could spend all day talking about it, and I have before. But for this guy, I gave him 5 tips that I want to give you guys, which is 1, the more often you contact her at the beginning of the dating phase, the less desirable you appear to be, okay? She's going to think you have all this time to contact her. And when women think that you have all the time in the world to be next to the phone, to be able to just talk to her whenever, then she gets the impression that you must not be wanted by other women. And believe it or not, at this stage of the game, competition does actually help create attraction. If she thinks she's competing for you with other women, then it's going to make her want to try harder and stay in the game to get your attention. Number 2, not contacting her builds up her anxiety. And I know it's something you don't want to hear, guy, because it sounds like it's playing games and it sounds like it should not work. But during this part of the dating phase, building up anxiety is actually a key component in being able to heighten her attraction at a faster level. Because when you don't contact her right away, what it does is it makes her question if you really like her, which means that she's going to feel more obligated to A, say yes to your next date request, and B, do more things to persuade you to be interested in her instead of it being the other way around. It just is what it is. Number 3, she needs time between dates to replay the previous date in her head and build a strong want to want to do it again. The want and desire to want to see you is stronger and more effective than actually seeing you whenever she wants to. So if she has that want to see you, then that means it's gonna make her work harder to try to get that attention. If you're just giving it to her because you're like, oh, I don't want to play games, I'm gonna do whatever. Well, now you're playing the game wrong, because now you're playing the game of giving her too much attention, which is giving off those beta male traits that we talked about earlier that women do not find attractive. And that's why if you do this kind of thing, you'll see women go from like seemingly having all the like in the world for you to suddenly just kind of like being like, nah, I don't want to answer his phone calls. I don't want to accept dates, whatever, you know? So that was number 3. Number 4, when you don't contact her, you give off the impression that if you're waiting 4 or 5 days to call her for another date, she's going to think you must have other things going on in your life, whether it's chasing your goals, whether it's hanging with friends, whatever. But this is extremely attractive to women because women don't want to picture their guy sitting there sulking, wondering, when am I going to get to see her again? Why isn't she contacting me? That, again, is not a very attractive thing to women. And then lastly, I said the time spent not contacting her is the time that she's going to spend talking to her girlfriends about you and picking their brain for why you're not calling her and going over what a great date she had and what you could possibly be doing when you're not there. All that stuff that she's thinking, subconsciously, she's going to be thinking to herself, I keep talking about this guy and I keep asking about him and wanting him to be around him more. Like, why am I doing this so much? Oh, wait, maybe it's because I like him. And again, I used to be the king of the friend zone. So I used to hang out with girls in college that I had major crushes on that I just could not get with, in part because in hindsight, I was too available. I would go to their dorms all the time, ready to hang out. I'd be able to answer their phone call. If they wanted to go to lunch at a certain time, I'd go with them and without any question or delay. And so I got stuck in the friend zone. But because of that, I'm also hearing them tell me about other guys they're interested in. And the stories would be like, well, I talked to this guy, he was really cute, but I haven't heard from him in 4 days. Oh, I really want to get with him. I wonder what he could possibly be doing. Why isn't he trying to call me? Hey, Harry, what should I do? And I'm sitting there like, he's doing everything right. So I can't really like, I can't fault this guy. At the time, I thought he was being a jerk. Then I realized later on, like, oh, wait, he's playing the game right. He's saying, yeah, you're cool, but I got other things going on besides you. And I'm not going to just stop my life because we hooked up or we had a good time at a party or whatever. And once I started doing that, same thing. It's like, oh, I don't have to see these girls or talk to these girls, date after date, like the next day in order to be able to get women. Like, it just wasn't a thing I had to do. And so once I figured that out, I was like, oh, I started getting better results and I started getting into more relationships and having more girls want to date me. So in answer to the guy's question, yeah, the 3 day thing, if you're not a guy that's used to doing this, then start with 3 days. Start trying to wait a minimum of 3 days before you contact a woman. But if you're like me, I've done it where I've literally gone out on a date with a girl and then waited 2 whole weeks before I contacted her again. I hit her up. Hey, what's going on? Oh, hey, what's great? Hey, what's going on? Let's go out. Why? When they have high interest, it cuts everything. They will be willing to see you when you want to see them if they have a high interest, but you're able to build up that high interest a lot better by showing that you don't have an attachment to the outcome and by showing that you're not so desperate to have to see them all the time. Now that you've heard from me, I'd like to hear from you. What's the longest you've waited to contact a woman between dates? If you're watching on YouTube, leave your comments below or write me at HarryWilmington@gmail.com. Are you ready to learn killer icebreakers that attract women on dating apps? Go to introvertdatingsuccess.com right now to watch my free video training, How to Get Attractive, Feminine, Emotionally Stable Women Dying to Respond to Your First Messages on Dating Apps Without Using Sleazy Pickup Lines. This will give you key secrets to sparking attraction and conversations with women online the smart way. If you like this video, hit that like button, make sure to subscribe, and click the bell icon to be notified about future videos. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time. Peace.